Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Interlinked podcast, the official Neo Tokyo podcast powered by Shrapnel.
Brace for impact, gamers, and prepare yourself for the sacrifice zone with Shrapnel. The world's first moddable AAA extraction-based shooter, built by a legendary, award-winning team behind some of your favorite games like Call of Duty and Halo. And they are kicking off 2024 with an absolute banger. People are finally going to be able to get their hands on Shrapnel during their early access season. And they are giving away $3 million worth of prizes. So buckle your chin straps and get ready to dive in and try and get your piece of the prize. Huge shout out to our sponsor, Playa3ull Games. They are inspired by gamers and funded by their community. They have a epic game on the Epic Games Store, a third-person shooter called Nexus. Hop on in there and check that out. They're also currently selling nodes, so if you're interested, check that out at their website, playable.games. That is a 3 instead of a B on Playable. Now strap in for the rest of this episode of Interlinked.
Today, we have the very good fortune of being able to speak with Mr. Jason, aka BitBender, aka a Barbarian, on the path of the Berserker at Gala Games. How you doing, my man?
Doing pretty good, bro. I'm doing pretty good. How about you guys?
Doing super good. Really excited that you carved out some time to come and chat with us. As always, side by side in this intergalactic voyage of knowledge here, my legendary co-host Nick. Thank you so much for being here as always and everything that you do, my friend.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Stoked to get in the conversation. Good day to talk about gaming.
Let's do it. Jason, would love to learn a little bit about your story. Obviously, it's
Sure.
intertwined with the Gala story, but
Mhm.
yeah, would love to just open up the floor and hear what you have to say.
Sure. So, hey guys, my name is Jason. A lot of people know me as BitBender. I've been in crypto since I think 2014 now. 2013. Oh man, yeah, 2013 has to be 2013. I originally got into crypto because I saw the way that it could potentially make a difference for people within the foreign aid sort of space. I did a lot of disaster relief work and things like that prior to getting into the space. Spent some time in Haiti doing, earthquake relief and stuff like that, and saw firsthand the inefficiencies of foreign aid and how, people would send tens of millions of dollars to a country and then none of it would actually get to the people that needed it the most. So I created a project proposal known as the Aid Dollars, submitted it to the Global Development Network and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, ended up getting a grant. They went and tested it in Africa somewhere. I wasn't actually part of that, but the idea got me started on like, okay, well, what can this blockchain stuff do to make the world a better place? I tried to build that for a while, worked with some governments and NGOs. There's a few pictures of me floating around out there, which are always kind of it's always a little bit funny to see people's reactions because there's one of me standing in front of a UN flag from a speech I gave at UNHCR in Bangkok, and uh, people are people get weird about UN related stuff. And I'm not from the UN. I've never worked for the UN or anything like that. But I tried to work with governments and NGOs for a while to get that moving. Wasn't able to get anywhere because they're just too slow, too inefficient, not able to really get anything done. And honestly not very interested in helping people in most cases. So this is where Gala and the concept of play and earn gaming came in. Worked on ideating the origins of Gala. The company itself was started by Eric, the founders, one of the co-founders of Zynga, and he started it. I didn't join right away, but I came in as I think employee number 8. Um, and I've been here since 2020, just, building like crazy the entire time. And we've got a lot of really amazing stuff that's coming up right now that is designed to make blockchain gaming easier and better for everybody. And so that's where we are. That's who I am.
I wanna rewind for a second.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of cool stuff. So when you were thinking about how to integrate blockchain and I'll just call it philanthropy work or helping people in need
Sure,
work.
sure.
Um, when you were talking about that proposal that got the grant and then
Mhm.
it was somehow you know associated with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and trial in Africa, that to me is something that, like, I want to really double click on that because
Yeah,
to get something passed through that and to have a grant and to then have people like that work on it, that's going to be a very well written proposal or a very well put together document. Like,
it was
what?
not. It was not. It was terrible. It was terrible. Do you want the actual like brutal story here? It's
Yeah,
kind of funny.
please.
It's a little bit funny and it sounds really nice. It's one of those things that when you say it like, oh yes, a proposal was accepted by the Global Development Network and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That is not at all what it was. I mean, that is literally what happened, but the backstory's, not nearly that impressive. I was working at that point in time as an academic consultant in Southeast Asia, and I saw a contextual ad show up in my Gmail that says, call for papers, Global Development Network, and I'm like, oh, what is this? I literally write professionally, right? That was my job, is basically to write professionally and edit people's essays and help come up with ideas and things like that. So I, clicked on that link. I discovered I had about 8 hours before the like 9 month period that they had been accepting papers for. I read their thing. They wanted a 3,500 word essay. So I'm like, this is actually, and then the prompt was, how do you fix foreign aid? Okay. And that was something that was really important to me because I had seen it go so wrong so badly while I was in Haiti. I mean, we were having situations where, I was volunteering at a hospital, not a doctor, don't play one on TV, but I am a large person who's really good at standing in doorways and carrying heavy things. And so, we were having situations where, we needed to get medical supplies, for example. And so the doctors would have to go bribe people at the port to get our own
Wow.
containers of crap needed because we were doing, you know, like 30 amputations a day, and we couldn't get gauze, crap like that. And so it's like, okay, well, clearly there are some really big problems because as much money went into Haiti, none of it really got to the people. Like when you went through Port-au-Prince after the earthquake, you would see USAID tarps. I saw one UN truck, one, only one the entire time. And lots of people dying of starvation and cholera and terrible stuff like that. Like, you know, when you're there at the hospital, a woman comes in and she delivers twins that live for 5 minutes because she hasn't had more than 3 meals in the last week. And there's millions of dollars flowing into the country. That's how spicy am I allowed to get on this?
Extremely.
That's extremely, extremely fucked up. And so that was sort of the impetus behind all of this. And so because it was something that I was extremely passionate about and I knew what needed to be said, I literally just sat down, hammered out 3,500 words, almost I was doing a little bit of the good rage typing thing. Um,
Yeah.
and just kind of yeeted it into their submission queue and didn't think anything else of it. It was just basically a writing exercise at that point in time. 3 months later, I get a call saying that my paper had been one of the ones that was selected to win. I was given some really, really great peer reviewers who helped me refine it. It went from a 3,500 word thing into this like 50-page thing that I eventually just handed off to them. And, I was no longer involved with it at that point in time, but I was still trying to kind of promote the idea. And yeah, that's what it was. But it was basically 3,500 words of rage typing about something I was super passionate about. And when I met with my peer reviewers, one of which was former head of a national bank, another one was a senator. These are some pretty heavy hitting people. The lady that was the head of the bank, she had said, "It's very clear to me that this is something that you're extremely passionate about, but that you don't have the what was the term she used? Um, Basically, her very nice way of putting it is, I don't know the shit that I don't know, so I'm able to think of solutions that nobody else can think of because I'm not burdened by, you know, it's like the little bit of a Dunning-Kruger thing at play
Yeah,
there. But it was very interesting experience.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
that's fascinating and a good amount of overlap. My cousins were actually down in Haiti after the earthquake, and they were living outside of Port-au-Prince for a while. So totally agree with your sentiment. That is really where sort of the pinnacle example of the most amount of money being thrown at a place with the littlest effect. I mean, you can still see
Oh,
today.
it's
It's
terrible, man. I was just in Haiti about a year and a half ago, and it's like there's still areas where it's just piles of rubble that people have now built on top of. It's weird.
and sort of now devolved into rival gangs. You had like the president assassination. I mean,
Moise was an interesting guy. I had an opportunity to meet with him and with his Minister of Finance a few months before he was assassinated. And he had some very progressive ideas, and they were really trying to change the country, in a positive way. It's really sad the way that that whole thing went down. He was a good guy.
Yeah, unfortunately, being an advocate for change in the political sphere can be a death sentence, as we've seen both,
Yeah.
domestically and abroad. Would be curious if this, it sounds like obviously you were just down there a year and a half ago. This is still a topic close to your heart.
Of
Have
course.
you given much thought, or what's your sort of maybe vision of how crypto could enable more effective sort of philanthropy and foreign aid?
The way that I look at this is the pinnacle of all of this is accountability and traceability. That's fundamentally the problem anytime you have these foreign aid situations, because you have tons of money that flow into a place, right? And each level that it goes through, somebody's taking something off the top. And then by the time it gets down to the bottom, you don't have anything left, which is why if you want to make a change, the way that you have to do it is by starting at the bottom. If you start at the top, then it's never going to filter all the way down. But starting at the bottom in a way, and this is where play and earn gaming is so important. Starting at the bottom, gives somebody the ability, on their own to, do something that is beneficial to them because they can get something out of it. And then also connects well with the rest of a larger ecosystem. I mean, you know, how many you live in the developed world? When was the last time you dropped $20 on some stupid game item? You know, all the time, right?
Very
If you're a
recently.
gamer, yeah, very recently, if you're a gamer, you do that all the time. Now, that $20 for you is like what, 3 trips to Starbucks, maybe if you're being super conservative and just getting something plain, right? Um, but for somebody in the developing world, that $20 could be the difference between, eating this week and not. And, so creating the systems that incentivize and provide opportunities for those flows in a free market fashion is profoundly important. And play and earn gaming has taken a really bad beat. And I know that even us, we haven't gotten it right all the time, at all. But I still think that at a fundamental level, it's a really important thing because um, giving people the ability to help themselves is critical.
And just to kind of trace that origin story to get to, because I feel like there was some time there from 2013, when you were kind of first getting into
Yeah.
crypto, and then like the play coming to the play to earn
Yep.
realization, like there was a time delta there.
Yep.
Um, what events happened, or what exactly was the paradigm shift or the principles that were critical to get from point A to point B to where you're like, ah, yes, play to earn gaming. This is the way. This is how we do that.
Right, right. So there's a few different things. I mean, the first is, you know, a couple years just absolutely beating my face against a wall trying to make progress kind of the through the conventional means. Um, at this point in time, I still had like a normal 9 to 5 job, academic consulting in Asia, which was very interesting, gave me access to all sorts of different types of information and thinking and a great network there, while also kind of living this nightlife of being a crypto guy, hanging out in Slack and random Telegram chats and stuff like that. And sort of almost in like a marketing capacity. Because again, as a writer, okay, originally, I was oftentimes the guy that, I'd be working with a team and I'd run into something that was an extremely complex engineering problem, right? And you would find that engineers, okay, who may be brilliant at engineering are often crap at explaining the thing that they have created. So I would work with projects to help write white papers and to, help improve the way that they explain stuff. Um, but and this is a whole other thing. I got really, really, really incredibly fed up with how bullshit most of crypto was. And this is a recurring theme again and again and again, where you'd see something, you'd get involved in a project, right? And I'm not going to like name drop projects and throw people under the bus, but like you'd get involved in a project, you'd be like, oh, this is super freaking cool, I love this idea. And you look at their, craptastic marketing materials, and you help write a thing that encapsulates what they're actually trying to do and all of that. And then you find, down the road that their entire project, all of it, the entire damn thing, is based on like a 8-year-old blade server that's under somebody's bed. And then, a hurricane goes through and knocks the entire project offline because that's just the way it is. And it's one dev with one thing under his bed, and it literally, all depends on that. And that sort of really started to bother me, to the point that, even though I had been around for the conversations that predicated the beginning of Gala, when I was offered to join, I was like, yeah, I don't know, Matt. I think I'm pretty close to like capitulating out of this space altogether. Let me talk to the devs. Like I need to see people and talk to them. And so it's like I was living in Vancouver at the time, and I remember getting on a Zoom call with like 6 other people, and they were all developers except for one like marketing graphic design type person. And I started talking to them, and they're like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing, and here's our code, and this is what we've done, and check this thing out, this is how it works, and we're doing this thing now, and we want to do this other thing. I'm like, oh shit, okay, you're actually building something, you have more than one person building. I'm pretty stoked about that. And so I agreed to join at that point in time, and we have 380 people now, I think. And just building like crazy. We've built our own L1 blockchain. We've growing across games, film, and music. There's just a ton going on, and I'm super stoked to be part of it, and I cherish the journey that I have taken to get here.
Yeah, I'd love to really like unpack what that what that journey for Gala specifically
Mhm.
was like. Obviously, at this point in time, anybody can see that, the numbers don't lie there of kind of where everybody is now. But would love to just understand like how did it go from this concept, this idea?
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm pretty sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the pioneers of a node-based ecosystem.
Yes.
Um, how did that
We
all,
were we were the pioneer of the node-based ecosystem. Um, anything that you see out there that's a gaming ecosystem that is doing a node sale or anything like that, that is either inspired by us or in the near future actually running on our substrate, which is an interesting thing, which I think the Neo Tokyo crew would appreciate learning more about. Um, so for us, we've always had a very strong interest in doing stuff the right way. My father who passed away a few years ago from early onset Alzheimer's, he has this he had this saying that he would use. He was a very religious person, and he had this Bible verse on the side of his work truck, that said, "Let all things be done decently and in order." And I'm not a particularly religious person, but that credo, I think, is something that I've taken with me, because there's a right way to do stuff, and you just like you have to do it the right way or don't do it. And so that's one of the things that honestly I think pisses people off a little bit sometimes, because we don't do a lot of the bullshit hype stuff that a lot of crypto projects do, because you really can't, because it will fuck you up long term badly. Um, and so, we have a tendency to kind of do things a different way. And the node ecosystem was the beginning of how we looked at this from a different perspective. I mean, a lot of projects start off with an ICO. Okay, so you mint your maxed supply of tokens. You sell those tokens using SAFs and tranches to, a variety of investors. And at that point in time, nobody's buying 5% of your total supply as an equity fund for utility, right? Like anyone who's like, oh, this VC fund just bought 5% of my total supply and wrote me a fat check because they're very interested in the utility. It's bullshit, and everyone knows it's bullshit. And that I'm not casting aspersions, but that creates regulatory problems, right? And it's a very straightforward thing. It's like, well, you're not supposed to do unregistered security sales. This is something that looks like a security, because you're treating it like a security and you're selling it to a VC fund who are buying it as if it was equity. It's pretty straightforward. So we knew that Bitcoin and Ethereum from a regulatory perspective were a little bit better, because both Bitcoin and Ethereum came into being not by not by an ICO really, but through work. I mean, Ethereum did have an ICO, but that was a like different older thing. But Bitcoin, the only way that you get Bitcoin is by mining. You can't get Bitcoin any other way. And so we're like, okay, well, what if we do something along those lines where we actually have a workload that people have to perform some work to, be the impetus behind the creation of the token. So that's what we did. Um, and that was the way that it all started. And that's actually the foundation of a lot of what we're doing on GalaChain right now, with the node offering model that people can execute on their own.
Yeah, and at the end there mentioned GalaChain. I know that there were some roadmap updates that were released
Mhm.
recently that started to shape that vision. Could you share with the audience at the current state what the vision is for GalaChain?
Sure, sure. And I would emphasize this is significantly beyond just a vision thing. I mean, this is live. Everything that we're doing right now on Gala is live. You can, look at the Gala chain. You can use it. You can download the SDK. You can deploy a copy locally. You can build all sorts of stuff. And I think that it's going to have a great deal of impact on the gaming space. um, One of the original stakes that we put in the ground, right, is we looked at all of the different uses of blockchain. Okay. And we said, okay, well, if we're going to make something that is performant, okay, that can handle the load of whatever we want to throw at it, the best place to start with that is gaming. Okay. As I mentioned previously, one of our founder, Eric Schiermeyer, is one of the co-founders of Zynga. At Zynga, which you will remember, Zynga is like the grandfather of microtransactions in mobile gaming, right? They uh, they had to have an entire new department created within Zynga to handle accounting for microtransactions. Because if you have something that has 150 million DAU, and every single one of those players is making five, 10 transactions a day. Suddenly you're getting up to, pretty decent numbers of transactions really quickly. So if we could make a blockchain that would be performant and scalable to allow us to handle that level of transactions, we could do anything on it. The number of transactions that you would make in a game like Farmville in a day, okay, the user base would make in a game like Farmville dwarfs the number of containers that go through the port of Hong Kong annually. Okay, so if you can handle gaming, you can handle anything, and so that was kind of where we started from with this. Um, but the basic idea is how do we create a blockchain and an ecosystem that is bigger than just a blockchain? Okay, if you look at every other blockchain out there, they have a chain, which is fantastic. Oftentimes it's EVM, okay, which is good for doing Ethereum things, but very bad for doing anything that's not an Ethereum thing. Solidity is a bit of a pain in the ass language for a Web 2 developer to learn. And so what we did is we said, okay, how can we make this easier? How can we, make it easier to onboard a new developer who wants to come in and build something on a blockchain, but without having to go through the pain in the ass of figuring out what the hell to do with Solidity and having to stand up their own indexer and all of these things. And so that's what we've done with GalaChain. And so it is live. It is fast. It is very, very low gas, and we invite people to come and build on it.
Now, when you're thinking about what this means for the ecosystem, I mean, you talked about like an initial node offering.
Yeah,
So would love to kind of get that wrapped in
sure.
to this question. But you guys have really expanded into all the different verticals, like you were talking about. Can you just kind of explain to us like how that actually works? And maybe just kind of break down like what the ecosystem looks like. Like you have the chain, you have the nodes, you have
Right.
the node, like initial node offerings, and then you have all, the music, the film, the gaming, and then you have the whole portfolio of games. Like maybe just kind of break all of it down. Just
It's
pretending like
it's
I'm a
a
fifth grader.
It's a lot. It is a lot. And that's the first thing that I think that a lot of people say as they look at it and they're like, well, why are you guys doing so many things? The important thing to remember is that it's not us necessarily that's doing these things. There's a lot of people who are building on the chain, who are creating amazing things, but it's not like it's all Gala engineers sitting in each of these games. In fact, the perception that it is a little bit of a frustrating one because you don't always have the ability to control a third party game any more than Ethereum or Solana or Avalanche has control over what a third party game does on their chain. But because we leaned in very heavily in the marketing of some of these things originally, now we're sort of a little bit beholden to the community perception around them, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. But the ecosystem itself is quite large. So at the very core of it, you have GalaChain and the node network. Okay. The node network right now, we've got, I want to say about 43,000 nodes workloads online right now, which is significantly more than Ethereum. We represent better than, I think right now, the actual number is better than 50% of IPFS DHT routing globally. So all of your projects out there that have your NFTs, even the Neo Tokyo stuff, if it's based on IPFS, it's routing through the Gala founders node ecosystem, and most people don't know that, which is a pretty phenomenally powerful thing. Um, we have the at this at so the chain and the nodes at the center of all of this, and then we also have the platform as a place where people can log in, can connect to. That sort of gives them the ability to access some of these creators tools and whatnot that we've created. Then beneath that, we have games, which have a number of first party and third party games underneath them. Then we have music and we have film. Each of these has their own node ecosystem that performs their own specific requirements. This can be things that range from distributed computing and hosting. So, for example, Last Expedition, which I would love to sponsor a Last Expedition tournament for Neo Tokyo, by the way. I think we could do something cool there.
We're
Last
in.
Ex Let's do it, man. It's a ridiculously fun game. It's a UE5 first person shooter. It has its own node network. So anytime you play a Last Expedition game, you're actually connecting to another user's node. And what's really cool about that is that when AWS East went down last year. Okay, it's about 9 months ago. It went down for about 6 hours, which was it's like a crazy outage, right? All of our nodes kept running, so people were still able to connect and play Last Expedition because they're playing on this decentralized distributed network, which was a really, really powerful thing. They have their own node ecosystem. Music has its own node ecosystem that hosts music files from all of the artists and whatnot. And the way that this expands is that people can come to us and they say, well, we want to build on GalaChain, which they can do. They don't actually have to have anything to do with us, really. They just kind of connect and go. Um, and if they want to do an offering of nodes, this does require a little bit of involvement from us for about the next month and a half, 2 months. After that, it's a completely decentralized process where they just go and do. And the idea is that rather than having an ICO, okay, what you can do is you can launch a node ecosystem that actually decentralizes whatever business process you want. Anything that you can put in a Docker container, you can run across a node workload. So, whatever the thing is that your company needs, whether it's AWS storage, cloud compute, AI iteration, whatever it is that you want, you run across a node workload. And then you can either sell or give those to your community. And then they serve as a fair launch mechanism for the token because you only get the token by running the node and supporting the ecosystem in a tangible, real way. And so that's not a thing that's been made easy before. People have sold nodes, most of which don't do shit, which is always kind of an amusing thing to see. It's like we have a node. What does it do? Ooh, nothing. But with this, they can actually build in their own workload. We have all the documentation that allows that to happen that can help them do whatever they want.
And to expand on that topic a little bit, as the pioneer of nodes, I would love to get really your take on, as you said, the nodes have become almost a new meta for this year for a lot of games, a lot of
They
game
definitely
companies,
have.
certainly inspired by you guys pioneering that. So I'd love to know sort of what your take is on some of the things they're doing right, some of these new node networks that are being set up, and some of the things that they're just clearly missing the mark on and not maybe taking the lessons from Gala's experience and making some mistakes with their node networks.
I think one of the biggest things, and again, I'm not going to throw anybody under any sort of buses, name names. I don't want to, do that sort of thing because I believe that this is all so much better if we build together and we build each other up. But the first thing that I would talk about is how important it is. Two things: that your nodes actually do something, okay, and that they do something that doesn't just help you. This is why we support IPFS. Okay. If you go to the Probe Labs DHT server page and you go look at all of the servers that are running Kubo, those are mostly Gala founders nodes. Okay, so if and when this happened about a year and a half ago, we had a situation about a year and a half ago where we changed some parameters in our node software, and it pushed the IPFS workload off of our nodes, and we immediately got a like semi-frantic call reach out from Protocol Labs saying like, "Hey guys, what just happened? We know that this was you guys. Why is this happening?" And we're like, "Oh well." wasn't really intended. We didn't realize the scope of our involvement at that point in time. And so we put the workload back in, we redeployed so that, would support that. And, we very strongly believe in the decentralized internet, and we lean in and we build um, as much as we possibly can that supports everybody. So that's the thing, is that recognize that when you do this, you're not just doing it for you, you're doing it for everybody. And if every node-based system out there actually builds in the stuff to help, it makes the internet better for everybody. And that's what we're getting to the point where we can start doing, is building a real decentralized internet together. And over the next 6 months, we're actually going to be open sourcing a lot of our node software. So if you don't know how to build a thing that permits that, then you'll just be able to take our software and deploy that, and pull that piece out that you can then use to support everybody. So that's the first thing. The other thing, I just that there's a lot of really bad vaporware out there, um and it's really hard to tell from a normal perspective, okay, what is like real and what is bullshit. And so, I mean, I even know that people look at what we do and, have misconceptions about, things like how a burn works, or what token supply actually is, or, how bridging functions. And, people assume that everything is the way that they think it is, sort of from just the ICO thinking. And there's a few things that have to be few ways that you have to think about things a little bit differently. And I think that, given the amount of bullshit that's in the space, like, I would just encourage everyone to be as clear as possible about what you're actually doing, and ship code. Let people see what you've got going on, let people experiment with it. And this is a thing that we're trying to push out as much as we possibly can right now. And over the last month, you've been seeing update after update after update from us, because we're at this point now where it's like, okay, we're just about ready to start going really wide with this, and that's what we're pushing for right now.
Yeah, I would love to kind of get your take on, since you guys are really, you've been hitting your stride and publishing and putting things out there, and you all have grown so much. Where do you where do you kind of see a lot of the projects that do want to move into the play to earn direction? Where do you kind of see them innovating? Kind of a similar question on the node base, but more just play to earn in general. Like, what do you kind of see working really well and being, really innovative on the models? And then what do you kind of see as like the issues that exist? Obviously the inflationary token mechanic is still probably going to be a bugaboo of a lot of different
It is.
projects and whatnot.
And the reason that it's going, and this is going to sound awful when I say this, because it's a gross oversimplification, but tokenomics are hard, man. This shit's not easy. And when you look at original, sort of the original V1 tokenomics of a lot of things, you look at the way that Axie was sort of set up at the beginning. You look at the way that even Townstar, one of our games, was set up at the beginning with its emission. Is, there was this naive sort of pattern of thinking where it's like, well, here's a thing that people are going to do, and if they do this thing, then we'll give them X tokens. Okay. Well, that's cool, provided that you don't have an insane number of people coming to do that thing. Okay. And this is what happened with Townstar. It's what happened with Axie, where suddenly out of nowhere, you have millions of players. And those millions of players are all coming and hammering on the same button at the same time. And tokens get printed like mad, and that obviously doesn't work. And so you have to you have to build in such a way, and this is something I talk about in our Discord a lot, which everybody should join, by the way, at galagames.chat. But I talk about this a lot, where you have to build not for now. Okay. You have to build for the future. And the problem is that if you build for the future, the people now are going to get pissed because they're not in the future yet. And so you have to build for the future and then bring in the players to match that growth pattern, which is often a challenge in the Web3 space because you know as much as we're all here, everybody who's listening to this podcast, right? You guys are all absolutely dyed in the wool crypto degens. Okay. Web3 gaming is your jam. Okay. And when you came over from Web2 gaming, you looked at Web3 gaming and you're like, yep, that's it. This is the thing. Fuck all the rest of that noise. I'm here. Right. But you all know how many of your friends in the Web2 world, when they hear crypto or NFT or anything like that, they just go, oh, God, really? Are you serious? And so we have this horrendous problem as an industry of people not understanding what we're doing because we're too degen, right? And so we have to kind of change the way that we approach things and do things to make what we're doing applicable to the average Web2 user. And we're getting a lot better at that. For example, last expedition, you can download and play, and you won't ever see a mention of blockchain or NFTs or anything like that. You just jump in and start playing, and it's super fun. Shrapnel is doing a pretty good job of this as well. I know that they're one of your sponsors for this. There and there's a lot of the teams inside Neo Tokyo are doing some pretty cool stuff. And it's all of us working together to kind of get over this perceptional barrier that Web3 equals weird crypto scam that we have to confront and deal with.
Yeah, in some ways, it was almost a blessing we didn't get too big in the last cycle because as many evangelists that were created, we created about 3x, at least in my network, anti-evangelists, where I've
Mm.
got now buddies who got so burned in the
Oh
last
yeah,
cycle that anytime I bring up anything, they're like, yeah, yeah, shut the fuck up. I do not want to hear about
dude,
any of that.
it is a problem, and one of the problems with that, and one of the frustrating things with that, as a person who kind of runs a project, okay, so not from the user's perspective, but from my perspective, we have in our community. And when I say our community, I mean Web3 in general. We don't have nearly enough gamers, and we have way too many speculators. And the problem is that we're all trying to build games, right? They don't want games. They want number go up. They want, I bought an NFT for X and now it's worth X plus. Okay. That's what they want. And that's not how a game works. And so we have this really, really weird clash of priorities where you have, I mean, I get the number of death threats I get because the token price is exactly in line with everybody else's freaking token price in the market. It's like people look at us next to Sand and Mana and we're like, dude, we're right there, guys. We're right there with them. But somehow I'm the asshole, but whatever. The amount of crap that I get because of token price, or because NFT price, or any number of things like that, where people take, how do I put it? People take, um this is this is people take uh bear market clarity of thinking and apply it to bull market insanity. Okay. And they in their bear market, I'm going to use this phrase because it's every dude is going to understand it. Post nut clarity, and they apply it to bull market thinking. It's obviously like you look at that and you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? And we look at it like that too. And I mean, there are things where we sold some NFTs for prices that I wasn't a fan of at the time, and I'm definitely not a fan of now. And I understand why people get upset and pissed. Um, but at the same time, you have to keep building. You have to just build on through all of it. And the only way forward is through. There's no getting around it. So,
And to expand on that topic, one of my favorite things to explore on this podcast is really the one of the biggest differences between Web 2 gaming and Web 3 gaming actually has nothing to do with blockchain. It's that Web 2 gaming was all built behind a curtain with
Yep.
very little peaks given over the course of development, probably sometimes nothing for even a year or years, where
Years. Yeah.
I compare Web3 game development to much more like stand up. You are building in front of an audience
Yes.
every single day.
Yes.
So, if you could talk a little bit about what it's like to be able, or what it's like to develop almost under a microscope from the community, and when it's a good time to
Gladly.
listen to the feedback, and when it's time to keep on trucking because you know you're onto something.
It's 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 a it's really a challenge sometimes. It's really a challenge sometimes. Now I have two distinct viewpoints here. I have a first party viewpoint and I have a third party viewpoint. Okay. From a first party games perspective, and actually before I even get into that, one of the interesting things about us is that we have a lot of people who come from the Web 2 space and have become Web 3 developers. I mean, our COO, for example, Mark Skaggs, is literally the dude that created Farmville. That's like Farmville, Command and Conquer Generals, that Mark Skaggs. He's built so many freaking games. And so these people have they come with and I don't mean to put him in this boat because he definitely doesn't actually belong there. When you come from the Web 2 world, sometimes you cling on to Web 2 thinking. Okay, Mark doesn't, but there are definitely people who have. And a lot of third-party game developers, which is a very interesting phenomenon. We signed a lot of these deals with these third-party game developers. Okay. And we signed them in the bull run. And then they go away and they go build stuff, right? But they have a very bull market mentality. And because they're not actually in the industry, right? They're building a Web 2 game that has crypto elements essentially. They don't think of things in the absolutist Web 2 sense or Web 3 sense. So when they come to, go deliver, okay, now they're like 2 years behind in terms of where their thinking should be. And they're like, oh, well, this is the thing. It's like, no, 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 that's not going to fly right now in this market. We have to rethink that. So that's a very interesting thing. And because again, they're very Web 2, they don't share the same updates that you would expect. On the other hand, if we have some of our first party titles, like Mirandus has created this. Mirandus is an MMORPG. It's being built by Michael McCarthy and his team. They're very open with how they develop, and they're constantly showing updates and constantly pulling the community. What do you think that we should do? They just had a meetup in Austin, Texas this last week. With a bunch of the community, and they just talked about things and shared art and shared thinking and stuff. And so, there's very interesting differences between a first party and a third party perspective. Now, to answer your next part of the question, like when do you just keep going and when do you, sort of like listen? You always listen. You always want to know what they're thinking. And I know that there are people who think that we don't listen or we don't pay attention, but we always pay attention. But there are times where they don't understand the bigger picture. Okay. Or they want something, and this is an extremely common thing where they want a certain thing that would be good as an investor, but terrible as a game or protocol. And so it's like, okay, well, we're not going to take a token for one of our games and turn it into an outright flagrant security just because you want us to. That's not going to be a thing that happens. We're not going to, create this, ridiculous thing that you guys want just because it's what you want. On the other hand, when it comes to game design stuff, they're always like if you have players and they give you feedback, you should do what you can to listen to that feedback while also understanding that gamers as a whole, and you see this on Reddit, I think is the best place for this. Every single time, any game that you have, any game, it doesn't matter what it is, Web 2, Web 3, doesn't matter. Anytime that there's an update or balance change, the first week is like, oh my God, you've ruined the game. This is bullshit. Fuck you guys. I'm out. I'm never playing this game again. What have you done? My favorite gun doesn't do what it used to do. Like, oh my God, what idiot made this? Bleh, right? And it's just like this non-stop like bleh, that happens. And then you wait a
And
week.
some of those people even go on to build out Ethereum and change the world.
Yes, sometimes, of course. Um, but then that's the very Vitalik is the extreme outlier there. Most people though will be back in Reddit playing because honestly they like the game. And yeah, game updates and tunings are things that just happen in games, and you have to get used to that fact. And actually that's another interesting difference between sort of web 2 and web 3 building is that a lot of web 3 developers, when they're like hardcore web 3 developers, they go in with this um we're doing this thing and it will never change because we made it perfect the first time and we wrote it all to chain and it's in the smart contract because we're just so fucking brilliant, we're never going to fuck up. The problem is that yeah, that doesn't happen. You always screw up. Everything that you do at some point in time can be improved. The only thing that is constant is the fact that you can always do better. So leave yourself an avenue for that. Don't don't think that you've got it all figured out and you know exactly what's going to happen. I This is one of the reasons I love seeing games release economics papers like 4 years in advance of the game, because you're like, dude, you don't have any users yet. How do you know what they're going to do? Like you can have this great perfect plan on paper, but it will fall apart when confronted by actual users, which I think is a fascinating phenomenon.
Yeah, not everybody can be Adam Smith, right? But everybody likes something there.
Well, I mean, but
Um,
even Adam Smith, I mean, come on, man. Like how much has our economy changed in the last
a
several
lot.
centuries? Like how much, how much has regulation changed where it's like, oh, joint stock companies? Well, that's an interesting thing. What should we do there? Oh, now the internet. And to be fair, our legislative and regulatory structures are obviously inadequate to handle, the innovation and the pace of innovation. So, Adam Smith couldn't have predicted any of that stuff.
100%. Yeah, I've actually gone back through and reading the classics. That's why it's top of mind.
Good. I, I,
But
I
so
see your book collection behind you there. It's some good stuff there.
yeah, I like to try to pretend that I'm smart, so I keep a lot of books by smart people behind me. But I know we're coming up close to the hour here, so just kind of want to touch on two topics really quickly.
Sure.
One of them, Black Swan events. I think that there's a ton of examples of just absolutely crazy things that happen that nobody ever thought would happen in the world before, and it dramatically impacts different projects. You know, I don't want to belabor, the point there of going into specifics of different things, but how have you guys kind of started thinking through how to deal with different Black Swan events? And how like what advice would you give to other founders and what advice would you give to people that are associated with projects that are going through different sort of Black Swan events? Would really appreciate your insight there.
I mentioned this earlier, but the only way forward is through, right? This is pretty much always the case. We've been hammered with a couple Black Swan events that have been profoundly frustrating for me. Okay. For example, two of our founders decided that they needed to sue each other. Now, because this is an ongoing case, it's not really a thing that I can talk about, other than the fact that it makes me definitely a Black Swan event because everybody's like, "Oh my God, a lawsuit! What are we going to do?" And anyone that does that hasn't been in business for very long because lawsuits just happen. But that I think qualifies as a weird, stupid Black Swan event that you as a project have to figure out how to deal with. Um, the we always look at this from the perspective of like we believe very strongly in what we're doing, and we believe that we have the ability to innovate and grow around whatever challenges may exist. And the key there is to be willing to be wrong. Be very willing to be wrong. In fact, be eager to be wrong. Because if you're wrong, if you can take something and discount it and say, like, okay, look, you know what? Not the best idea. Thought it was a good idea, turned out not to be a good idea. Now we're going to try something else. The faster that you can get through that process, okay, the faster you can iterate, pick up the next piece and begin advancing that. It's when you start like believing like, no, I'm right, I'm not going to change, that you're really going to start running into problems. And this is especially true in Black Swan events, because in a Black Swan event, the people who are going to survive are the people who can pivot and move the quickest. And that's fucking hard with 380 people, by the way. Like, you think a pivot with a small startup is a pain in the ass. Imagine what it's like trying to, like, right now we're in the process of pivoting from a fully remote working style to a more in-person working style. Like, holy hell, it's like steering the Titanic with a broken oar. It's like very, very challenging, but it's also very powerful. So be willing to be wrong. That's the first thing.
I appreciate that. And then onto our second and final question.
Sure.
And yeah, maybe we can have you back at a later date to
Yeah,
double
man, of
click on a
course.
lot of these things.
Of course.
Um, AI has come onto the scene with a fiery, will not be
Yes.
stopped charge. How are you guys thinking about that? How's that going to impact, everything that's going on with you guys, but then also crypto gaming as a whole?
It's I mean, AI is hugely powerful in terms of the ability to drive productivity. It's it's a 10x influence easily on the well, everything. Whether it's, and this pisses people off, but whether it's from an art perspective or, writing code, it can be hugely, hugely useful. So we're big fans of it just in general. Now, the key here is that I think it has to be more decentralized. I think that having everything in the hands of one or two big AI companies, or the same companies, you have your Microsofts, your Googles, everybody has their own AI. This needs to be decentralized. We need more people running their own LLMs, more people running their own image models. Those things are going to be really important in the long run.
Makes a lot of sense. Um, Jason, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really been an absolute pleasure. Just want to, you know, give you give you a stage. Any last thoughts that you have? Any last plugs you
Yeah,
want to.
I would invite everyone to come check out what we're doing. Join our Discord at galagames.chat. Go check out galachain.com. Build something. Let's talk about nodes.
Awesome. Jason, you're the man. Thank you so much. Nick, Crypto Atheist, you're also the man. Thank you so much. Everybody who's watching and listening, y'all are the respective mans and womans and robots, whoever's watching here now and in the future. Thank you very much. Really appreciate all of you. And we'll see you on the next episode of Interlinked. Take care.